Hello everyone and welcome to another Watercolor Wednesday. I am Allison with the blog A Glimpse Inside, and this week I have a fun little Christmas wreath. I love doing wreaths. They're actually one of my most favorite things to make just because you can do so much variety with them. You can do just a basic wreath that's super colorful, add a little figure into it and go around it, for any holiday pretty much. So I wanted to do a fun Christmas one. I had made one last year, and this is kind of a more elaborate one than I made last year. I didn't share it in a post, but this is what we'll be creating this week. So this is a 5x5 square of watercolor paper. I feel it's just like kind of the perfect wreath size, and then you still have plenty of room if you wanted to write Merry Christmas or 'Tis the Season or whatever holiday sentiment you want in the center, and you can turn this into a card. So let's get started. The stamps that we will be using for this is from the fir tree set. I use, actually let me see which one it is in the end. I use this one. You can also use this one. Really, you can use any of them. I just kind of like the way this one angled because then it kind of just perfectly goes around the wreath shape. From the branches set, I use this little fella right here. You can also use this long squiggly one or even this one if you want a little bit more of a branch. From the fall set, I used the 3 little berries, but feel free to use the bigger twigs if you'd like. From the mini flower set, this little tiny bunch of dots right here. From the foliage set 3, I used this one. You can also use this one, so either one of these 2 vines is fine. And then from the new flower set 4, I used this little bunch of flowers. They kind of look like a rose or peony in a way. So we're going to use this little like 3 stamper here. I'm actually only going to use one of the flowers on the 3 stamp, but it will be that. And then for colors, I got number 15 olive green, 86 African violet, 28 English red, 72 pine green, 89 persimmon, and number 18 dark brown. So not a lot of colors, but yeah, shouldn't take us too long here. So you'll start with your 5x5 square and draw a circle, trace a circle, draw a circle. Like I do with all my wreaths, I just trace the top of my mason jar that I use for my water. It's just kind of the perfect size, but use whatever you have on hand to get the job done. Okay, and then we're going to start with the actual like little pine branch, what's it called? I'm not really sure. And that's going to be in the pine green. So I'm going to ink this whole thing. And I tend to just kind of like to start at the bottom and work my way up and around. So I'm going to kind of stamp it twice before I re-ink. I'm just going to spin my paper as I go here. So I'm making this pretty thin first. I just kind of want to get my basic shape in there. And then I'm going to go back with this one and then kind of twist it a little bit more to give it a little more volume, a little more texture. And then I'm not always inking down this little point right here because sometimes that gives you like a wonky little part of your stamp. So I'm just kind of, thankfully that stayed up. Okay, so now that I went all the way around, I'm going to now kind of just ink the tip of it. And I'm just going to come in here, and if there's kind of you know, and add more frills outward. That's not really the word I'm looking for, but texture outward, branches outward. And this will kind of also give us some spaces where we can tuck in our other elements. This is actually probably what takes the longest on this stamp. And so then if you have like a weird little spot like right here, the end of my stamp is really sticking out and it looks kind of funky. Put this little branch right over it and it will fill in that gap nicely. So as we go, you can see how it's starting to fill out now. Okay, and then decide if that's it, if that's good, if you're happy. I'm gonna add something right through here, I think. Okay. All right, so that one's now done. So now you can kind of see it all aims in the same direction. That's what you want to do this entire time with all of your elements. Make everything kind of flow around the whole wreath. So I'm going to do the vine one next in the olive green. And I'm not going to ink up the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of do probably a little more than half, I guess. And kind of the same thing. I'm just going to tuck this in now between these little areas that we just created with our pine branch. Just kind of adds a little more texture. Get that other bright green in there. Don't have to add it as much as I am if you just want a little bit. But I just like the look that it gives as you keep going here. I have a cat scratching at my door, so if you hear something weird in the background, that's all it is. She wants to come see what I'm doing. Okay, almost done here. So as you notice, I'm not adding water yet. Come back right there a little bit. Don't want to add water quite yet. Okay, so I am now going to do my red flowers. So you can use all three of these. You can use just two of them. I'm choosing to only stamp one, and that way I can totally control how I want it. So I'm just coloring that one little stamp, and I'm just going to tuck it in. If I want to pop in 3, I'm just going to pop in 3. If I want to pop in just, say, 1 right there, 1 it is. So you can just decide like how many you want to put and in what little gaps that you want them. I tend to keep them towards the outside of the wreath because when you kind of go over the green with this red, it turns muddy. So I try not to really stamp anything towards the center, but it also can start looking a little plain and random. So if you have like a hole where you think like, oh, that would be a good place to add one, you know, go ahead and do that. because it's like, oh, there's all these flowers and they're just on the outside of the wreath. I don't have like a poinsettia E type of stamp, but this is kind of what I'm going for with this little one here. It's like good old Christmas poinsettia flower into the wreath. So make that one darker. Well, that one just went crazy, didn't it? I kind of messed that one up. Not sure why I decided to go above that one. Let's see. Besides my weird random flower sticking out over here, which we'll try to fix in a minute. Let's see. We'll add one right here. And maybe another one around here. Okay. I'm going to stop that one for now. I'm going to go onto my stick here. So this branch has like a Y shaped, and then this little one. I'm only going to ink up this long one. Because kind of the same way with the flowers, I could then add it however I want. I can stamp it a couple times. I can give it different shape. And I can just kind of control exactly how I want this little branch. So if I want it to, I can just double it up. It's fine. Working my way around the wreath, doing everything in the same direction. Let's see if we can kind of bring this fella in a little bit here. Make it look a little more intentional. There, we'll work that back in there. Looks a little bit better. Okay, so there is that. And then our last thing before we add water is going to be our berries. I am going to ink all of them. If I want to just do one, I'll just do one. Or I can just kind of press the stamp a certain way with pressure wise and get just like two or whatever. And this one's going to be, oops, not that one. They're the persimmon. So I just kind of wanted a good amount of red and color on here. So again, just tuck that in wherever you want to add that little pop of red into your wreath. You don't have to do these red. Maybe you want to do them as green berries or African violet. Maybe you want to do like a totally unconventional wreath altogether and do like pinks and blues and purples. I did that one year and like made like a big wreath, like a real life wreath. Because I just wanted to kind of have like unconventional Christmas colors, and I still pull out that thing. I love it. It's one of my favorite Christmas decorations. Okay. So there are my berries. So now we're going to add water. So I'm going to start with the greens first. And and work my way around the whole wreath. You can make it quite, blend it in, feather some of that color out, leave some of that white between it. You don't have to add water at all if you don't want to. If you want a really washed out look, then add more water. But for right now, I'm trying to dodge anything that's red. I don't want to get, even if they're overlapping, I just skip that flower. Like, I don't want to get anything that's red right now. So if you have like a weird gap, this is a good time too. You can just like take this green, and just maybe like add a little bit in. Be like, okay, there. That just kind of brings that. Or if you have like an awkward shaped side, just feather out your green and it will help shape up your whole wreath. Such as, over here where I went all wonky. I'll just take a little green and kind of put a little bit more around those flowers. Because I don't know what I was thinking by adding 3 over there. Okay, so now that our green is done, I'm going to go to these red flowers, but I'm not really going to like do a whole bunch. I'm going to try to stay just on the red. If they blend, it's fine, but I try to stay just because they have those white lines and they're super thin, and I don't really want to make those completely go away. Because I don't want these just to be like big red blobs. So I dipped my brush in water. I pinched off a lot of that excess water. And I'm just kind of working my way around here. I'll get some more and get a little dry. And I kind of bring my brush into like a pretty good point too, and that helps kind of control where you're trying to touch it here. Okay, we're almost done. I'm just going to do kind of the same thing, pinch my brush up, and I'm just going to touch those little berry dots. It just kind of helps bring out that red. Okay, and then kind of the same thing with the branches. You don't have to do anything to these branches, but I'm just going to kind of just here and there, just kind of add a little water to them. Again, these are so tiny and thin that you don't have to add water at all. So feel free to skip this part if you are nervous. Okay, so once everything is good and dry, and I think my green is, we're going to come in with our little tiny berries. This is just a lot of green, and again, I try to add some of that red down into it, but I want to break up all that green. So I'm taking these little tiny dots and the African violet, and I'm just going to kind of stamp little bunches, like almost just little tiny berries, into the wreath. They could be in the center. They could be off to the side. But I'm stamping like 3 or 4 times, kind of in like a little circle, and then re-inking. And I feel like these just add like just the perfect last little touch that this little wreath needed. You can have them kind of coming out of the wreath if you want. If you want to see them a little bit more. Let's see, I'll put some down here, I think. Okay, and that's it. And then we are going to, I'm going to pinch off a lot of water, and I'm just going to touch a couple of those. I'm not even touching the entire bunch, because I just want like a couple to be deeper, but I don't want the whole thing to like take over, and then that's all you see. So I'm just touching like a couple of those, make that color pop, and we are done. Then those just little dots just bring the whole thing together. So fun. So I'm going to grab a little marker and sign and date, and you are done. Pop it in a frame, turn it into a card by putting a little sentiment in the center, and you are good to go. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I may be back next week with another wreath variation. I have something else in mind, but we'll see if I get to it. I hope you have an awesome week, and I will catch you next week. Bye.